This program is designed to provide general information with regards to the subject matters covered. This information is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, sponsors, or station are engaged in rendering any specific and personal, medical, financial, legal, counseling, professional service, or any advice. You should seek the services of competent professionals before applying or trying any suggested ideas. Magazine publisher and entrepreneur Judith Mancini is sharing captivating conversations with experts in their field about the latest trends in our ever-changing world to help you become healthy, wealthy, and wise. Judith Mancini today will spark your interest and inspire you to lead your best life ever. And now, here's Judith.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Judith Mancini today. Before we get started with the communist, socialism, and democratic republic information, I want to take time out to ask everyone to say a little prayer for our friends and families that are in Florida and experiencing the wrath of Hurricane Helene. They're going to get up to 2 feet of rain, 100-mile-an-hour winds, a 20-foot surge. This is devastating, and we have family and friends in Florida, so we're sending a little prayer. If you've been asked to evacuate, please do. As I say, we have family down there, and Pinellas County is where they live. In the St. Pete area, I have to tell you, then I saw one of the ladies who has been on my show before, and she has a business, and she does a lot of posting on Facebook and Reels and things like that. And she was making breakfast for herself and her husband, and she said, "We are leaving in about an hour." Now, you see, to me, I love her. I don't have a problem with her, but I have a problem with her thinking. An hour, the whole thing can change and become stronger and close roads, and you won't be able to get out. And so please don't think you have to clean your house, hide everything, load your car up so it's impossible to get in and out of it. Just go. All right. And besides that, we have breaking news today. Mayor Eric Adams has been charged with 5 indictments, including bribery and taking money from foreign peoples. What is going on in our world? It's just absolutely crazy, and it tends to make you go crazy and stressed out, and I don't know. He took more than $10 million in public funds of some sort. I don't know. Just horrible. Okay, Helene, I just got a note from my wonderful, wonderful engineer. Helene will enter near Tallahassee as a Cat 3 with 121 mile per hour winds tonight around 8 p.m. Eastern. It's horrendous. It's really a bad hurricane. They're saying it's as bad as Katrina and all. Okay, moving on, I want to thank my, my engineer. He is so wonderful. I just spent a few minutes with him before the show, and he explained to me how people hack into your computer, because I've been hacked into Facebook. I've been hacked into my entire computer where they were threatening me. This is crazy. So he helped me out a whole lot, and particularly because my laptop is old and it's a Mac, and I can't use any of the Norton or McAfee malware type things on it for security. They won't take it. It just doesn't go on the laptop. So he gave me the name of Malwarebytes, Malwarebytes. They can do max, he thinks, pretty sure. And I'm going to try it today and I'll let you know what happens because I obviously have something going on here that's not good. And when it came on yesterday, I panicked and thought, how am I going to do my podcast? Anyway, thank you so much, Juan. You're the very best. I appreciate it. Now, the other thing that we want to talk about today, I'm going to read this to you if you didn't have a chance to read my poster. Communism, Socialism, and a Democratic Republic. What you need to know. The upcoming election for the 47th President of the United States of America is heating up and is a hotbed of rhetoric from both the Democrats and Republicans. Throw in some others, and the pot is boiling over with truths, lies, and the worst, assassination attempts on former President Trump. If this isn't bad enough, there are those out there that would prefer we become a communist or socialistic country. Do you remember from your high school civics classes just what these parties are all about? Today's wise part of my tagline is going to remind you that our country is still the best in the world. At least I hope you agree with me on that. Okay, so that's what I'm talking about today. Now, I'm not a civics teacher and I don't have any degrees in anything like this. I'm just going to give you some simple things about what these different economic and political parties are. Some interesting facts are going to come out in this, okay? We are considered a democratic republic, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But in the meantime, going through all my papers here, and I've been watching newscasters. They all have papers on their desks, so now I don't feel so bad, except it makes noise in the microphone. So there's a difference between communism and socialism, and these are both political and economic systems that are very similar but not identical. One thing that they have in common is they reject capitalism. Now, we're a democratic republic and we believe in capitalism, meaning that you can work your little fanny off as much as you want and make as much money as you want and continue to succeed financially and economically. Where in these other societies, these are systems where greater equality of the masses is their aim. However, somewhere along that line, I think they got a little goofed up. So they reject capitalism instead of giving economic power, instead giving economic power to the working class. Okay, well, I can see that. I've read books on this, and that's what they all say. But in a communist country or a social communist country, socialistic communist country, I seem to recall that the leaders of these countries don't live like the proletariat, the masses of people. For instance, in Russia, they decide where you live, and they're big, tall buildings with little tiny apartments. Now, I'm talking about smaller than what we see here. And you don't have a choice of where you live. They may need you in a certain part of Moscow to do a certain job. Maybe go work in a factory someplace around the Moscow area. They decide what you do. They decide if your children are smart enough or agile enough to try out for the Olympics and let them train from a young age till they reach those heights, and then they decide if they will put them on the team. They will tell you if your child can go to university and what he should be taking when he's a younger child. what classes he should take, what school he should go to. And they never make a lot of money, the citizens, because they're pretty much told where they're supposed to go work. And the wages are not like the wages here in the United States. But the leaders have a lot of money, a lot of wealth, and dockhouses on the ocean so that they have their little summer beach houses they can go to. There's a big difference from living in the different places. Their justice system is different. They don't have 3 branches of government. So those are some of the things about capitalism, communism. But then there's also socialism. And it's a little loosey-goosey compared to communism. Socialism, it's a little broader in its thoughts and political beliefs. They both have emphasis on an equitable distribution of wealth, but they have also gone into, many other countries. For instance, I don't think you'd be surprised to know that Germany is the Social Democratic Party of Germany. And the Labour Party in the UK is very strong, and it exerts a lot of influence on the government in the UK. So communism and socialism both came about because of the Industrial Revolution. At least that's what their founders say. And you think about the Industrial Revolution, that's when we no longer needed everybody to go out and hand thrash the wheat in the fields, because they started inventing things like the combine, and that's when people started losing their jobs and having to go into the factories to manufacture things, when they were inventing the machinery that could replace lots of people hand making them in their iron forge at home, things like that. So as socialism has sort of kicked in places like the UK, it's never taken a foothold here in the United States. The Communist Party really did try to take a foothold. And it was founded over here in 1919, but it didn't really grow until post-World War II, when the Red Scare came into the United States, and there were lots of little riots and lots of people standing on their soapbox and secret meetings and things like that. You may remember how people thought it had invaded the entertainment industry, and there were many people brought up in front of committees in our government to be interrogated to see if they were communist. And many were blackballed in Hollywood because they thought they had ties to the Communist Party. And indeed, some of them did. But what they wanted was more of an egalitarian process here in the United States, where people could make more money or be taken care of more by the government. And many people fled our country because they felt they were being persecuted. And indeed, if they had ties to the Communist Party, they were asked to leave or thrown in jail. Now, socialism did take another little step up in our government at one time. And there was a Congress member, Eugene Debs. Now, you probably heard about him in your high school classes. He was a socialist candidate for president. He did not give up trying. He had tried in 5 elections, 1900, 1904, 1908, 1912, and 1920. He earned close, to 1 million votes on his final try. This will not surprise you. More recently, Senator Bernie Sanders is a self-described Democratic socialist he was a serious contender for the Democratic Party nomination in 2016 and 2020. Of course, he didn't get enough votes to be nominated. But everybody gets mixed up between these two, the communists and the socialists. And many times, some of these programs that they would like to start in the United States lean towards socialism. But many of them, the programs, are indeed to help people in need. So it does get a little confusing of what is going on and what the political parties are saying. For instance, free medical care for everyone is a socialistic idea. And there are many pros and cons for that. I find since I've moved to the desert and I'm trying to establish new doctors because my husband has a heart and a circulation problem, the insurance down here and all is a bit crazy because it's so small and not everywhere takes the different insurances. So yes, I'm old enough to be on Medicare and Social Security. I know you thought I was much younger, but I'm not. Okay, so no joking. Joking aside, I'm not in favor of giving everybody the same medical care or insurance, I should say. Of course, I want everybody to be taken care of, but it's working fairly good now. Let's see if we can make it work even better. Does that make me a communist or does it make me a socialist? I don't think so. I think we should take care of people who have less than us. But I also think people shouldn't just decide to go be on the dole. I think you should try to get a job or start your own business. And you laugh and you say, well, I can't because I have no skills. Well, that's where our education system comes back into the forefront because we need to teach people to do the blue collar jobs that are in demand. Now, we all know computers and the internet and all have just really changed what's going on. I don't know of a school now where you don't have to take computer classes. I may be wrong. There may be different parts of the country where they don't have enough money in their education system to give everybody a laptop or a computer on their desk in school. And that needs to be taken care of also, because obviously you all know that the internet is here to stay forever until something better comes along. So you can't just say that all of the ideas are very wrong in these different thoughts. But here is Putin or Xi living in these beautiful castles, mansions, whatever you want to call them. And then you have the people living in squalor. But we have that here too. So what is good? I'm looking for something to tell you, which is quite interesting. So bear with me as I'm trying to find it. At any rate, you want to know who were the first modern socialists? Well, we all know about Marx writing his manifesto. That's for communism. And the first socialists, Robert Owen and Henry de Saint-Simon, a Welsh manufacturer who lived in the 18th and 19th centuries. He was an influential advocate of utopian socialism. I honestly have to tell you, I do not know that much about socialism, except it's not communism. Okay? And I've tried to explain the difference to you, but we'll see what goes on here. I found a list of countries that are communist, and I was shocked because there are only 5 on it. And I'm looking for it for you. And I have to tell you, it surprised me. Here we go. The 5 countries of communist revolutions when a communist dictator came in started a long time ago. It was following the Russian Revolution in 1917, when Lenin was the leader of the victorious Bolsheviks. And it expanded on the principles of Marxism, as did Lenin's eventual successor, Joseph Stalin. Their ideas evolved and merged into a Marxist-Leninist political party, and that governed the Soviet Union until 1991, when the Soviet Union collapsed. You've all probably seen the movie Dr. Zhivago. There's been many movies, and there always will be movies and documentaries and books written, television programs, documentaries of the Russian Revolution when the Tsar and his family were killed. It would be nice if we could have peaceful revolutions and just decide to take them out of power, but apparently in Russia, they felt that the Tsar's family would rise up if they were not all killed. And it would behoove you to read some of the history of this and how this became what it is. And then, of course, the Soviet Union decided to take over more land as time moved on, and they moved into also a very a nation that was not tolerant of religion. It wasn't tolerant of other people's political ideas. There was a lot of killing of people who didn't disagree, who didn't agree. And it finally became so bad that that's what happened in 1991. The people could see that a few leaders had all the wealth and decided what the rest of the countries would do. So as I'm looking up all of these different things and trying to put it in a nutshell for you, here are the 5 countries that have communist governments, although they call themselves socialist or have socialist economics. Vietnam, for example, is a socialist republic of Vietnam. Another interesting fact is a lot of other nations have communist parties that participate in political process by varying degrees. So here are the 5 countries. China, hence the CCP, Chinese Communist Party. Cuba, considering people like Castro, is probably the most famous, I would say. Laos, which is by Vietnam, and North Korea. North Korea, you know him, you know she, but he's not a nice guy, but he lives well, doesn't he? So here are some things that I want to tell you about communism before we move into what we are and what you think we should be. and how your vote counts. Communism aims to eliminate the class system and socioeconomic class struggles. That's what they say. State owns the major resources in society, including property, agriculture, and transportation. The public owns and controls the major means of production, such as mines and factories. And that is their class list. No private property. There's no private property or currency. Wealth distribution is divided among citizens equally or according to individual needs. I just don't know how that works. The Communist Manifesto is still out there. Do they distribute that, or do you all of you end up standing in breadlines like has happened, particularly after the fall of the Soviet Union? Well, we had a Great Depression here in the United States when the economy fell, and it fell all around the world, but we had breadlines here and soup kitchens and horrible things. The men had to become what they called tramps, but they were really men who were looking for jobs, and they'd hop onto the railroad cars and go from city to city. And sometimes they would walk out into the countryside and even knock on people's doors to, please, could I have your remnants from your making your dinner? Could I have anything to eat? It was a terrible, terrible time. And we don't want to head in that direction. So one of the biggest ways, as we can think about the Russian Revolution, is that communism differs from socialism historically, is that former calls for the transfer of power to the working class are through revolutions rather than gradual means. Some of socialist countries and society, and we might call England that way, even though they have a monarchy, it's a very confusing group of people over there. These two political and economic ideas, communism and socialism, have not been extremely successful in the world. So today we're having an election in 40 days of the 47th President of the United States. Now, what in the world is different from what our founders of our country decided to do? It's extremely difficult to take the Constitution in some of its regards and plug it into our society today. They didn't expect to have all the states we have and the country divided up into all the states. But they did provide for these different places to have their own elected legislators, governors, what they call them, and even the states call themselves different names. They could be called a Republic of California. I'm just going to use us here as an example. And then we elect a governor who is over all the rest of the people in the state and is leading our legislators here in California. But there's something else thrown in. We elect people to go to Washington, D.C., our capital, to tell them what we think of the laws and rules that the United States government is proposing. So it gets all mixed up. That's why you need to be listening to what the different candidates are saying. I think it's a very interesting time right now because some people are leaving their parties and going to the other parties. Now, why do you think the names of the two major parties in the United States are the Democrats and the Republicans? Because they basically follow what they believe should be the government of the entire United States. Democracy gets a little mixed up as it goes from person to person, and it has shown that there are a lot of people who are close to socialists that want to take more care of the population of the United States, which is all fine and dandy. We do take care of them. We all contribute to Social Security. The government throws some money in there too. We pay into Social Security with our taxes and our paychecks and what have you. Now, that is the democratic way that we take care of people. That with Medicare, which we all contribute to also. In our republic, we like to give people, our Republican Party, we like to give people a smaller government that doesn't interfere with our lives as much as the Democrats like the government to take more control over the people and decide what they will get, how we will run our country for the next 4 years after this election, and maybe well beyond, because we elect a president every 4 years. Well, what about if you have a democratic government and it gives everybody one vote? Does it mean that people are more likely to see their opinions put into action because one party gets their ideas across easier to the populace? But each type of vote in our country is given equal measure. That is why it's so important for you to go register to vote, so you have a voice in how your country is going to be run and what it's going to do for you. Yes, the government should take care of us, but not in the realm of free handouts, because it comes back to the people. Where would the money to run the government if it didn't come from the people? That's why we have taxes. That's why we have income tax. So we didn't have income tax for years and years and years. And now we do. So if you look at the different positions of the two main candidates, they're extremely different. One wants to pay for all the student loans. Now, I paid for my daughter to go through college, through university. When she decided to get her master's, it took her a while to decide to do that because my daughter decided to pay her way to see the world before she went and finished her college degree, her degree in biology at UC Santa Barbara. She took time off after working for about a year and then deciding she would go to university for 1 year. She went back to New Hampshire. She took the time off after she went to New Hampshire. She went to a school called Hampshire College that doesn't exist anymore, but was listed as one of the top universities back there. But they were rather experimental, more so than they had in their brochures and what was going on there, and very extremely liberal in their thoughts. No grades, just pass or fail, and a lot of leftists who were very much against the government. So she wasn't thrilled with it, and she stayed there 1 year, and then she took the year off and worked, and then decided she wanted to see the world because she was going to get very serious about her education after that. So that's what she did, and then she went back to UC Santa Barbara and got the degree in biology, and then she went to Duquesne University to get a degree as a registered nurse in Duquesne's medical program. Health program. Duquesne is in Pennsylvania and Pittsburgh, for those of you who don't know. So she had a different idea on education and working, and then she finally got married at 40 and had babies, started having babies. And now she has two, a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old boys, both. And the reason I'm telling you this is that then she decided she needed her master's, wanted her master's in nursing, and she recently completed that. Now, I paid for her education when she was in university for her bachelor's degrees. I did not pay for her master's. She's an adult now. I am happy that she got it. I'm thrilled. I've helped her out throughout life, as I did my son. He chose not to go to college. He chose to work in the entertainment industry and did quite well. And I did help him as he was learning his profession in the entertainment industry. But both my kids knew that eventually they had to go out on their own and make their living. Now they should come take care of me, right? No. So here's the thing. We can't, as a country, afford to put every single person through a 4-year university, particularly those who think they can get a degree in frisbee throwing and go find a job. And let me ask you, why should these kids who can work their way through school, who can have their parents help them, and even if their parents help them and give them the money, they got low interest rates. That's not how it was supposed to work, but that's what happened. And now we are forced to pay these kids loans because they can't find a decent job that pays them enough money to exist by getting an apartment or a small house or pay off these loans. I don't know that those government-backed loans were any good, ever. Some of them were just loans through these different countries, and a lot of people made a lot of money off of these loans from people wanting to go to a 4-year university. But I digress. When you're in a communist or socialistic country, you don't get to choose if you want to go to a university. The government actually chooses, like in Russia. Your family may have dreamt of the day that you could go to the university, but they remembered your children were asked different questions, given tests, and they were told which elementary school they went to and which secondary school they went to. And then the government decided if they would go to university, and if they did, what they would be studying. They could study anything. Maybe they were super duper at athletics, and the government paid for their instruction from the time they were in what we would call middle school through high school to train as a gymnast or a ballet dancer or what have you. It's not up to you. And that's why I don't believe communism is the answer to anything, because I don't think the government should be controlling your life. I certainly don't want it controlling my life. I don't want anybody controlling me, period. I'm a little independent here. So that's what I want to say about all of that. I just think that everybody should be looking at the economy and what is happening to these people who don't have high paying jobs. There is minimum wage, and you should always aspire to do better and follow your dreams, but you have to work for those dreams. Okay? I don't think you should lie about where you went to school, what you got a degree in. It comes back and bites you in the fanny. I don't think that the government should tell you what profession you should go into. How much control can the government get over you? Well, if they're telling you that in 2030 you can't drive anything but an electric car, what does that do to you now? That's the government controlling you and telling you what to do. Because number one, most of the people in the United States, let's face it, cannot afford to buy a $60,000 to $100,000 car, let alone spend the money to put a charging station into their home or their apartment buildings or what have you to charge the car, because each one costs over $100,000 to convert into an electric charging station for the cars. Now, Miss Kamala, Vice President Kamala, I keep forgetting she is still Vice President. She says now, as she's flip-flop, maybe we'll take the date of everybody getting an electric car to out a little further in decades. But here's the thing. Who's going to build these charging stations? Everybody knows about the hundreds of thousands of dollars spent, billions of dollars spent to build some charging stations, and only 8 have been completed. So the money just keeps trickling in promises of these new positions. And I haven't heard anything new out of her mouth to make me feel that she's going to really help us get out of this soon-to-be recession. Yes, I know inflation has gone down a little bit, but nobody can afford to buy $7 and $8 dozen eggs. It's absurd. Eggs used to be considered one of the best things to buy for your family if you were really on a strict budget. It really had to use your food stamps or anything. It's so high in protein and so inexpensive. So that's not even possible for some of these people now. And yes, you tell me that you go to Aldi or you go to Costco. It all adds up. Cut back. No desserts for your kids. That's one way to make them healthier too. So think about all of these things when you're voting. And women out there, I'm speaking directly to you. I had somebody that I truly respect in her profession, and I think she was a guest on my show at one time. I'm forgetting because we live in the same area and see the same Facebook posts and things like that. I didn't know even how to respond to her today because she's so intelligent and so bright and so kind and so successful. But one of the reasons she's voting for Kamala Harris is because she's a woman. And I have to tell you, I would love to see a woman president at some point. Other countries like the UK and France and Italy and different places have had women in their top positions in their government, and they were duly elected. But I'm sorry, Kamala Harris is not ready, and I would never vote for somebody into the highest office in our land because she was a woman. That is so bad, because all women aren't intelligent. All women can't stand up to men and argue their point with the good information that they need to take care of this. Can you imagine her going over to Putin or Xi and talking to them? I can't. I really can't. She can't even do an interview. So I'm not going to say any more about her today, but I will say that my life was a lot better. My husband's and my life was a lot better. My kids' lives were a lot better. My friends' lives were a lot better when President Trump was in office for 4 years. So I've endorsed him before. I'm endorsing him again. But remember, we live in a free country and your vote counts. So be sure you're registered. Check your registration, because I've had friends telling me that they're not registered anymore. Their registrations in their state got lost or they moved and they don't know what's going on. There's only 40 days. You have to be registered a certain amount of time before the election comes up. So please go get registered to vote, and vote for what you know in your brain and your heart is true, and how the country will stand up to these nations that are trying to attack us and to kill our former president, and hope to God that we don't get in another third world war with what is going on. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm sorry it was a little scattered here, because after I did my research, I decided there was just too much information to give you, and I'm not a civics teacher. So I gave you the basics. I think you should look up these different political parties, economic and societal, and figure out what's going on, okay? We don't want anybody attacking us. Stand for the United States, and I stand with President Trump. All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Remember, cherish yesterday, dream tomorrow, and live today. Bye-bye.